Hello and welcome to the Cultured Bumpkin. I'm Jake. This is chapter 17 of Moby Dick by Herman Melville. Chapter 17, The Ramadan. As Queequeg's Ramadan, or fasting and humiliation, was to continue all day, I did not choose to disturb him towards till night. I did not choose to disturb him till towards nightfall. For I cherish the greatest respect towards everybody's religious obligations, never mind how comical, and could not find it in my heart to undervalue even a congregation of ants worshipping a toadstool, or those other creatures in certain parts of our earth who, with a degree of footmanism quite unprecedented in other planets, bow down before the torso of a deceased landed proprietor merely on account of the inordinate possessions yet owned and rented in his name. I say we good Presbyterian Christians should be charitable in these things, and not fancy ourselves so vastly superior to other mortals, pagans and what not, because of their half-crazy conceits on these subjects. There was Queequeg, now, certainly entertaining the most absurd notions about Yojo and his Ramadan. But what of that? Queequeg thought he knew what he was about, I suppose. He seemed to be content, and there let him rest. All our arguing with him would not avail. Let him be, I say, and heaven have mercy on us all, Presbyterians and pagans alike. For we are all somehow dreadfully cracked about the head, and sadly need mending. Towards evening, when I felt assured that all his performances and rituals must be over, I went to his room and knocked at the door, but no answer. I tried to open it, but it was fastened inside. "Queequeg," said I softly through the keyhole. All silent. "I say, Queequeg, why don't you speak? It's I, Ishmael." But all remained still as before. I began to grow alarmed. I had allowed him such abundant time, I thought he might have had an apoplectic fit. I looked through the keyhole, but the door opening into an odd corner of the room, the keyhole prospect was but a crooked and sinister one. I could only see part of the footboard of the bed and a line of the wall, but nothing more. I was surprised to behold resting against the wall the wooden shaft of Queequeg's harpoon, which the landlady the evening previous had taken from him before our mounting to the chamber. That's strange, thought I, but at any rate, since the harpoon stands yonder, and he seldom or ever goes abroad without it, therefore he must be inside here, and no possible mistake. "Queequeg! Queequeg!" All still. Something must have happened. Apoplexy. I tried to burst open the door, but it stubbornly resisted. Running downstairs, I quickly stated my suspicions to the first person I met, the chambermaid. "La, la," she cried. I thought something must the matter. I thought something must have been the matter. I went to make the bed after breakfast, and the door was locked and not a mouse to be heard, and it's just been so silent ever since. But I thought maybe you had gone off and locked your baggage in for safekeeping. La, la, ma'am, mistress, murder, Miss Hussy, apoplexy." And with these cries, she ran towards the kitchen, I following. Mrs. Hussy soon appeared, with a mustard pot in one hand and a vinegar cruet in the other, having just broken away from the occupation of attending to the castors and scolding her little black boy meantime. "Woodhouse," cried I, "which way to it? Run for God's sakes and fetch something to pry open the door. The axe, he's had a stroke, depends upon it. The axe, he's had a stroke, depend upon it." And so saying, I was unmethodically rushing upstairs again empty-handed, when Mrs. Hussy interposed the mustard pot and vinegar cruet and the entire castor of her countenance. "What's the matter with you, young man? Get the axe, for God's sake. Run for the doctor, someone, while I pry it open." "Look here," said the landlady, quickly putting down the vinegar cruet so as to have one hand free. "Look here, are you talking about prying open any of my doors?" And with that, she seized my arm. What's the matter with you? What's the matter with you? What's the matter with you? What's the matter with you, shipmate? In as calm but rapid a manner as possible, I gave her to understand the whole case. Unconsciously clapping the vinegar cruet to one side of her nose, she ruminated for an instant, then exclaimed, No, I haven't seen it since I put it there. Run into a little closet under the landing of the stairs. She glanced in and, returning, told me that Queequeg's harpoon was missing. He's killed himself, she cried. It's unfortunate Stiggs done over again. It's unfortunate Stiggs done over again. There goes another counterpane. God pity his poor mother. It'll be the ruin of my house. Has the poor lad a sister? Where's that girl? There, Betty, go to Snarls the painter. Tell him to paint me up a sign with no suicides permitted here and no smoking in the parlor. Might as well kill two birds with one stone. Might as well kill both birds at once. Kill? Oh, the Lord be merciful to his ghost. What's the noise there? You, young man, avast there. And running after me, she caught me as I was again trying to force open the door. I won't allow it. I won't have my premises spoiled. Go for the locksmith. There's one about a mile from here. But avast. Putting her hand into her side pocket. Here's a key that'll fit, I guess. Let's see. And with that, she turned it in the lock. But alas, Queequeg's supplemental bolt remained unwithdrawn within. Have to burst it open, said I, and was running down to the entry a little for a good start when the landlady caught at me, again vowing I should not break down her premises. But I tore from her and with a sudden bodily rush dashed myself full against the mark. With a prodigious noise, the door flew open, and the knob slammed against the wall, sent the plaster to the ceiling, and there, good heavens, there sat Queequeg, altogether cool on his hams and holding Yojo on top of his head. He looked neither one way or the other, but sat like a carved image with a scarce of a sign of active life. Queequeg, said I, going up to him. Queequeg, what's the matter with you? He ain't been a sitting so all day, has he? Said the landlady. But all we said, not a word could we drag out of him. I almost felt like pushing him over so as to change his position, for it was almost intolerable. It seemed so painfully and unnaturally constrained, especially as in all probability he had been sitting so far forwards of 8 or 10 hours, going too without his regular meals. Mrs. Hussey, said I, he's alive at all events, so leave us, if you please, and I'll see to this strange affair myself. Closing the door upon the landlady, I endeavored to prevail upon Queequeg to take a chair, but in vain. There he sat, and all he could do, for all my polite arts and blandishments, he would not move a peg, nor say a single word, nor even look at me, nor notice my presence in the slightest way. I wonder, thought I, if this can possibly be a part of his Ramadan. Do they fast on their hams that way in his native land? It must be so. Yes, it's part of his creed, I suppose. Well, then, let him rest. He'll get up sooner or later, no doubt. It can't last forever, thank God, and his Ramadan only comes once a year, and I don't believe it's very punctual then. I went down to supper, after sitting a long time listening to the long stories of some sailors who had just come from a plum-pudding voyage, as they call it, that is, a short whaling voyage in a schooner or brig confined to the north of the line, in the Atlantic Ocean only. After listening to these plum-puddingers till nearly 11 o'clock, I went upstairs to go to bed, feeling quite sure by this time Queequeg must certainly have brought his Ramadan to a termination. But no, there he was, just where I left him. He had not stirred an inch. I began to grow vexed with him. It seemed so downright senseless and insane to be sitting there all day and It seemed so downright senseless and insane to be sitting there all day and half the night on his hams in a cold room holding a piece of wood on his head. For heaven's sakes, Queequeg, get up and shake yourself. Get up and have some supper. You'll starve. You'll kill yourself, Queequeg. But not a word did he reply. Despairing of him, therefore, I determined to go to bed and to sleep, and no doubt before a great while he would follow me. But previous to turning in, I took my heavy bearskin jacket and threw it over him, as it promised to be a very cold night, and he had nothing but his ordinary round jacket on. For some time, do all I could not get into the faintest doze. I had blown out the candle, and the mere thought of Queequeg, not 4 feet off, sitting there in that uneasy position, stark alone in the cold and dark, this really made me feel wretched. Think of excuse me. Think of it, sleeping all night in the same room with a wide-awake pagan on his hams in the dreary, unaccountable Ramadan. But somehow I dropped off at last and knew nothing more till break of day, when, looking over the bedside, there squatted Queequeg, as if he had been screwed down to the floor. But as soon as the first glimpse of sun entered the window, he got up, with stiff grating joints but with a cheerful look, limped towards me where I lay, pressed his forehead again against mine, and said his Ramadan was over. Now, as I before hinted, I have no objection to any person's religion, be it what it may, so long as that person does not kill or insult any other person, because that other person doesn't believe it also. And when a man's religion becomes really frantic, when it's a positive torment to him, and in fine makes this earth of ours an uncomfortable inn to lodge in, then I think it high time to take that individual aside and argue the point with him. And just so I now did with Queequeg. "Queequeg," said I, "get into bed now and lie and listen to me." And then went on, beginning with the rise and progress of the primitive religions and coming down to the various religions of the present time, during which time I labored to show Queequeg that all these Lents, Ramadans, and prolonged ham squattings in cold, cheerless rooms were stark nonsense, bad for the health, useless for the soul, opposed, in short, to the obvious laws of hygiene and common sense. I told him, too, that he being in such other things such an extremely sensible and sagacious savage, it pained me, very badly pained me, to see him now so deplorably foolish about this ridiculous Ramadan of his. Besides, argued I, fasting makes the body cave in, hence the spirit caves in, and all thoughts born of a fast must necessarily be half-starved. This is the reason why most dyspeptic religionists cherish such melancholy notions about their hereafters. In one word, Queequeg, said I, rather digressively, hell is an idea born on an undigested apple dumpling, and since then perpetuated through the hereditary dyspepsias nurtured by Ramadans. I then asked Queequeg whether he himself was ever troubled with dyspepsia, expressing the idea very plainly so that he could take it in. He said no, only upon one memorable occasion. It was after a feast given by his father, the king, on the gaining of a great battle where 50 of the enemy had been killed by about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and all cooked and eaten that very evening. No more, Queequeg, said I, shuddering. That'll do. For I knew the inferences without his further hinting them. I had seen a sailor who had visited that very island, and he told me that it was the custom, when a great battle had been gained there, to barbecue all the slain in the garden or yard of the victor, and then one by one they were placed in great wooden trenchers and garnished round like a pilau with breadfruits and coconuts, and with some parsley in their mouths were sent round to the victor's compliments to all his friends, just as though these presents were so many Christmas turkeys. After all, I do not think that my remarks about religion made much impression upon Queequeg, because, in the first place, he somehow seemed dull of hearing on that important subject, unless considered from his own point of view, and, in second place, he did not more than 1/3 understand me, couch my ideas simply as I would, and finally, he no doubt thought he knew a good deal more about the true religion than I did. He looked at me with a sort of condescending concern and compassion, as though he thought it a really great pity that such a sensible young man should be so hopelessly lost to an evangelical pagan piety. At last we rose and dressed, and Queequeg, taking a prodigiously hearty breakfast of chowders of all sorts, so that the landlady should not make much profit by reason of his Ramadan, we sallied out to board the Pequod, sauntering along and picking our teeth with halibut bones. That is the end of chapter 17. And I'm going to take a quick little break. Good evening. If you're live or catching the replay, I appreciate you listening, and I would love to hear what your favorite part of the book. If you're familiar with it, I always like to hear what someone's like favorite character or favorite part of the book is. My favorite character, besides the narrator and Queequeg, hasn't been introduced yet. My favorite is Stub. That's my favorite. Let me check on this thing real quick. Get right back. We'll try to do chapter 18 here in just a second. Let me need to check and make sure I'm not running out of time. And on the thing I use, StreamYard, you can only have like 50 hours saved before you have to like delete stuff or download it. And I'm kind of close to it. I need to see where I'm at. $49.6. Getting pretty close. I think we can do one more. Okay. Uh-oh, hope I don't get kicked off again. Okay, here we go. Sorry, this is taking so long. I have to delete one of my videos out of the thing, so I'll be good, so I don't run over my time. And then I think I'm good now. Okay. All right. Okay. Chapter 18, His Mark. As we were walking down the end of the wharf towards the ship, Queequeg carrying his harpoon, Captain Peleg in his gruff voice loudly hailed us from his wigwam, saying he had not suspected my friend was a cannibal, and furthermore announcing that he let no cannibals on board that craft unless they previously produced their papers. "What do you mean by that, Captain Peleg?" said I, now jumping on the bulwarks and leaving my comrades standing on the wharf. "I mean," he said, "he must show his papers." "Yes," said Captain Bildad in his hollow voice, sticking his head from behind Peleg's out of the wigwam. "He must show that he's converted. Son of darkness," he added. "Oh, son of darkness," he added, turning to Queequeg, "art thou at present in communion with any Christian church?" "Why," said I, "he's a member of the First Congregational Church." Here be it said that many tattooed savages sailing in Nantucket ships at last come to be converted into the churches. "First Congregational Church?" cried Bildad. "What, that worships in Deacon Deuteronomy Coleman's meeting house?" And so saying, taking out his spectacles, he rubbed them with his great yellow bandana handkerchief, and putting them on very carefully, came out of the wigwam, and leaning stiffly over the bulwarks, took a good long look at Queequeg. "How long hath he been a member?" he then said, turning to me. "Not very long, I rather guess, young man." "No," said Peleg, "and he hadn't been baptized right either, or it would have washed some of that devil's blue off his face." "Do tell now," cried Bildad, "is this Philistine a regular member of Deacon Deuteronomy's meeting? I never saw him going there, and I pass it every Lord's Day." "I don't know anything about Deacon Deuteronomy or his meeting," said I. All I know is that Queequeg here is a born member of the First Congregational Church. He's a deacon himself, Queequeg is. Young man, said Bildad sternly, thou art skylarking with me. Explain thyself, thou young Hittite. What church dost thee mean? Answer me. Finding myself thus hard pushed, I replied, I mean, sir, the same ancient Catholic church to which you and I and Captain Peleg there and Queequeg here and all of us and every mother's son and soul of us belong, the great and everlasting first congregation of this whole worshiping world. We all belong to that. Only some of us cherish some crotchets no way touching the grand belief. In that we all join hands. Splice, thou meanest splice hands, cried Peleg, drawing nearer. Young man, you'd better ship for a missionary instead of a foremast hand. I never heard a better sermon. Deacon Deuteronomy. Why, Father Mapple himself couldn't beat it, and he's reckoning something. Come aboard. Never mind about the papers, I say. Tell Quahog there. What you call that? I say, tell Quahog there. Is that what you call him? Tell Quahog to step along. By the great anchor, what a harpoon he's got there. By the great anchor, what a harpoon he's got there. Looks like good stuff, that, and he handles it about right. I say, Quahog, or whatever your name is, did you ever stand in the mast of a whaleboat? Did you ever strike a fish? Without saying a word, Queequeg, in his wild sort of way, jumped upon the bulwarks, from thence into the bows of one of the whaleboats hanging to the side, then bracing his left knee and poising his harpoon, cried out in some such a way as this. Captain, you see him small drop tar on water there? You see him? Well, s'pose him whale eye well den. Well, s'pose him one whale eye. Well den. And taking sharp aim at it, he darted the iron right over old Bildad's broad brim, clean across the ship's deck, and struck the glistening tar spot out of sight. Now, said Queequeg, quietly hauling in the line, s'posey him whaley eye. Why, that whale dead. Quick, Bildad, said Peleg, his partner, who, aghast at the close vicinity of the flying harpoon, had retreated towards the cabin gangway. Quick, I say, Bildad, and get the ship's papers. We must have Quahog in one of our boats. Look ye, Quahog, we'll give you the 90th lay, and that's more than ever was given a harpooner yet out of Nantucket. So down we went into the cabin, and to my great joy, Queequeg was soon enrolled among the same ship's company to which I myself belonged. When all preliminaries were over, and Peleg had got everything ready for signing, he turned to me and said, I guess Quahog there don't know how to write, does he? I say, Quahog, blast you. Dost thou write thy name or make thy mark? Excuse me. But at this question, Queequeg, who had twice or thrice before taken part in similar ceremonies, looked no ways abashed, but taking the offered pen, copied upon the paper in the proper place an exact counterpart of a queer round figure which was tattooed upon his arm, so that through Captain Peleg's obstinate mistake touching his appellative, it stood something like this: Quahog, his X mark. Meanwhile, Captain Bildad sat earnestly and steadfastly eyeing Queequeg, and at last, rising solemnly and fumbling in the huge pockets of his broad-skirted drab coat, took out a bundle of tracts, and selecting one entitled The Latter Day Coming, or No Time to Lose, placed it in Queequeg's hands, and then grasping them and the book with both his, looked earnestly into his eyes and said, Son of darkness, I must do my duty by thee. I am part owner of this ship, and feel concerned for the souls of all its crew. If thou still clingest to thy pagan ways, which I sadly fear, I beseech thee, remain not for I, a Belial bondsman. Spurn the idle bell and the hideous dragon. Turn from the wrath to come. Mind thine eye, I say. Oh, goodness gracious, steer clear of the fiery pit. Something of the salt sea yet lingered in old Bildad's language. heterogeneously mixed with scriptural and domestic phrases. Avast there, Bildad, avast now, spoiling our harpooner, Peleg said. Pious harpooners never make good voyages. It takes the shark out of 'em. No harpooner's worth a straw who ain't pretty sharkish. There was young Nat Swain, once the bravest boat header out of all Nantucket and the Vineyard. He joined the meeting and never came to good. He got so frightened about his soul that he shrinked and sheered away from whales or fear of afterclaps in case he got stove in and went to Davy Jones. Peleg, said Bildad, lifting his eyes and hands. Thou thyself, as I myself, hast seen many a perilous time. Thou knowest, Peleg, what it is to fear, what it is to have the fear of death. How then canst thou prate how then canst thou prate in this ungodly guise? Thou beliest thine own heart, Peleg. Tell me, when this same Pequod had her 3 masts overboard in that typhoon on Japan, that same voyage when thou went mate with Captain Ahab, didst thou not think of death and the judgment then? Hear him now, cried Peleg, marching across the cabin and thrusting his hands far down into his pockets. Hear him, all of you. Think of that. When every moment we thought the ship would sink. Death and judgment then? What? With all 3 masts making such an everlasting thundering against the side and every sea breaking over us fore and aft, think of death and judgment then? No time to think about death then. Life was what Captain Ahab and I was thinking of, and how to save all hands, how to rig jury masts, how to get to the nearest port. That's what I was thinking of. Bildad said no more, but buttoning up his coat, stalked on deck where we followed him. There he stood, very quietly overlooking some sailmakers who were mending a topsail in the waist. Now and then he stooped to pick up a patch or save an end of tarred twine, which otherwise might have been wasted. That was chapter 18. I think we can do one more. Let's see. Okay. Chapter 19. The Prophet. Shipmates, have you shipped in that ship? Queequeg and I had just left the Pequod and were sauntering from the water for the moment each occupied with his own thoughts, when the above words were put to us by a stranger, who, pausing before us, leveled his massive forefinger at the vessel in question. He was but shabbily apparelled in faded jacket and patched trousers, a rag of a black handkerchief investing his neck. A confluent smallpox had in all directions flowed over his face and left it like the complicated ribbed bed of a torrent when the rushing waters have been dried up. Have you shipped in her? He repeated. You mean the ship Pequod, I suppose? Said I, trying to gain a little more time for an uninterrupted look at him. Aye, the Pequod. That ship there, he said, drawing back his whole arm and then rapidly shoving it straight out from him with the fixed bayonet of his pointed finger darted full at the object. Yes, said I, we just signed the articles. Anything down there about your souls? About what? Oh, perhaps you haven't got any, he said quickly. No matter, though. I know many chaps that haven't got any. Good luck to them. And they're all the better off for it. A soul's a sort of fifth wheel to a wagon. What are you jabbering about, shipmate? Said I. He's got enough, though, to make up for all the deficiencies of that sort in other chaps, abruptly said the stranger, placing a nervous emphasis upon the word he. Queequeg, said I, let's go. This fella's broken loose from somewhere. He's talking about something and somebody we don't know. Stop, cried the stranger. You said true. You haven't seen Old Thunder yet, have you? Who's Old Thunder? said I, again riveted with the insane earnestness of his manner. Captain Ahab. What? The captain of our ship, the Pequod? Aye. Among some of the old sailor chaps he goes by that name. You haven't seen him yet, have you? No, we haven't. He's sick, they say, but it's getting better, and he'll be all right again before long. All right again before long, laughed the stranger with a solemnly derisive sort of laugh. Look ye, when Captain Ahab is all right, then this left arm of mine will be all right. Not before. What do you know about him? What did they tell you about him? Say that. They didn't tell much of anything about him. Only I've heard that he's a good whale hunter and a good captain to his crew. That's true. That's true. Yes, both true enough. But you must jump when he gives an order. Step and growl. Growl and go. That's the word they have. But nothing about that thing that happened to him off of Cape Horn long ago when he lay like dead for 3 days and nights. Nothing about that deadly scrimmage with the Spaniard afore in the altar in Santa. Heard nothing about that, eh? Nothing about the silver calabash he spat into, and nothing about losing his leg last voyage, according to the prophecy. Didn't you hear a word about them matters and something more, eh? No? I don't think you did. How could you? Who knows it? Not all Nantucket, I guess. But howsoever mayhap, you've never heard tell about the leg and how he lost it. Aye, you've heard that, I dare say. Oh, yes, that everyone knows a'most. I mean, they know he's only got one leg and that a Parmacetti took the other off. My friend, said I, what's all this gibberish of yours about? I don't know, and I don't much care, for it seems to me that you must be a little damaged in the head. But if you're speaking of Captain Ahab, of that ship there, the Pequod, then let me tell you that I know about the loss of his leg. That I know all about the loss of his leg. All about it, eh? Sure you do. All? Pretty sure. With finger pointed and eye leveled at the Pequod, the beggar-like stranger stood a moment, as if in a troubled reverie. Then, starting a little, turned and said, You've shipped, have you? Names down on the papers? Well, what's signed is signed, and what's to be will be. And then again, perhaps it won't be after all. Anyhow, it's all fixed and arranged already, and some sailors or other must go with him. And some sailors or other must go with him, I suppose, as well as any other men. God pity him. Morning to you, shipmates. Morning. The ineffable heavens bless you. I'm sorry I stopped you. Look here, friend, said I. If you have anything important to tell us, out with it. But if you're only going to try to bamboozle us, you're mistaken in your game. That's all I got to say. And it's said very well, and I like to hear a chap talk up that way. You're just the man for him, the likes of you. Morning to you, shipmates. Morning. Oh, when you get there, tell him I've concluded not to make one of them. Ah, my dear fella, you can't fool us that way. You can't fool us. It's the easiest thing in the world for a man to look as if he's got a great secret in him. Morning to you, shipmates. Morning. Morning it is, said I. Come along, Queequeg. Let's leave this crazy man. But stop. Tell me your name. Tell me your name, will you? Elijah. Elijah, thought I, as we walked away, both commenting after each other's fashion upon this ragged old sailor, and agreed that he was nothing but a humbug trying to be a bugbear. But we had not gone perhaps above 100 yards when, chancing to turn a corner and looking back as I did, who should be seen but Elijah following us, though at a distance. Somehow the sight of him struck me so that I said nothing to Queequeg of his behind. That I said nothing to Queequeg of his being behind, but passed on with my comrade, anxious to see whether the stranger would turn the same corner that we did. He did, and then it seemed to me that he was dogging us, but with what intent I could not for the life of me imagine. This circumstance, coupled with his ambiguous, half-hinting, half-revealing, shrouded sort of talk, now beget in me all kinds of vague wonderments and half apprehensions, and all connected with the Pequod and Captain Ahab, and the leg he had lost, and the Cape Horn fit, and the silver calabash, and what Captain Peleg had said of him when I left the ship the day previous, and the prediction of the squaw Tistig, and the voyage we had bound ourselves to sail, and 100 other shadowy things. I resolved to satisfy myself whether this ragged Elijah was really dogging us or not, and with that intent crossed the way with Queequeg, and on that side of it retraced our steps. But Elijah passed on without seeming to notice us. This relieved me, and once more, and finally, as it seemed to me, I pronounced him in my heart a humbug. End of chapter 19. All right, so that was the end of chapter 19. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you again soon, the good Lord willing. So have a great night.